Talking today.
Oh, can I get a microphone?
So I just want to frame, is this on? Yeah, I just want to frame our chat. Really, it's really about best practices for estimating and just how do you create a document that's one, indisputable, that is verifiable and reduces friction in the process, right? So if you can do those three things every car, every time, then you become a valuable piece of that sort of repair puzzle. So one of the things I think John and I are very aligned with is estimating practices.
Absolutely. And how many people in here feel that you can't get along with an insurance adjuster?
Which one?
Any, all of them. But Phil and I own competing software, and we can stand up here and get along just fine to work with all of you. So if we can do that, why can't you deal with an adjuster? And it all comes down to language. As Bill and I discussed, what we wanted to talk about when we were up here, it's going to come down to documentation, the language that you use when you deal with your adjusters. And that's what we want to talk about up here. Putting everything into every estimate. It doesn't matter what system you use, from paper to an app-based system that each of us have, or using CCC, Mitchell, Autotext. It's all going to be the same. Documentation and the language that you use when you write those estimates.
Yeah, that's, if you think about anytime, think about dating, it's just a great example, right? Although I haven't dated in a long time, but I'm in love with my wife, and I'm constantly reinventing myself so she finds me attractive, but which is tough. But anyways, you got to think about that environment to where you're being attractive. You're doing attractive things, right? And what's attractive to a body shop, as an example, if you're working, what's attractive to those people? What do they have to do in a large scale event? What do you see when you go there? Anybody can talk about
chaos.
What you see? Yeah.
Well, we can go right down that line and let's talk about dating on the internet. Now, we're all on, everybody in here is on Facebook or some form of social media, and who hasn't seen the memes and the joke about the really hot face, the good-looking guy, the really hot chick, and then the reality is the person that shows up is nowhere even close to that. That's exactly what it's like when you write a ghost panel on an estimate, and an adjuster walks through the door.
What's a ghost panel?
That's the mystery panel that has dents on a paper, but no dents on a panel.
What? You mean in our industry, people write something that's not there? They do. Shame on you guys.
It is the truth, and we've all seen, if you get paperwork in from an adjuster and it's got no dents on this panel, but they wrote it, you're like, ching. But if you do that, you're the liar. And if you start that relationship with that adjuster, with that body shop, on a lie, on paper, right away, then for the whole rest of that storm, you are the liar. You'll never win another argument. There's never going to be a case. They're always going to go back to that one single time when you put up the bogus picture. When you put up the supermodel and then you showed up through the door.
The cookie jar, right? Everybody's familiar with the cookie jar, right? So, I know when I was a kid, my mom had the classic cookie jar, right? And she always knew, how many times I stuck my hand in there because, the cookies would go down. And I see oftentimes, and it's not just in PDR, it's in body shops too. So, and it's likely probably in every aspect of some type of a service business, is car one comes through, right? We're very cautious because now we're just a part of the dating cycle. I want to be at my best. I want to look the best. I'm printer primed. I've got the flowers. I've got it all. And I've just present a nice package. All of a sudden, car 2, car 3, car 4, car 5, car 10, car 100. All of a sudden, we're a little bit more relaxed. I can show up a little late. I can oops, I burped, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, you start just really relaxing, and so everything gets relaxed in the process. So including your dent counts. I give you a quick example of that. I got faced with that in our own business.
Yeah.
And we were chatting about that a little bit. It was very embarrassing for me because I went into one of our shops and Progressive Insurance guy walks in and says, hey, I'm here to look at this supplement. Hey, I'll do it. I just walked in, let me help you out. I'd love to do that with you, right? Why? I'm concerned. I want that relationship with that guy. I want him to see our business in a very good light. And I'm sitting there, oh my, I mean, I was in the worst comfortable position I was all year. Because he's asking me legit questions that I can't answer. He's like, this paper in this car, is this the same car?
How many of you like arguing what you wrote on a piece of paper?
Zero.
Yeah. Now, how many of you like arguing what somebody else wrote? And that's exactly what Bill's talking about. And this is exactly what happens when you write in the back of a body shop and you send it off to the estimator, and the estimator sends it off to the insurance company, and an adjuster shows up in the door to look at that. That estimator up front has to defend everything that you put on it. They had you write the hail because you are the hail expert. They have to argue it. And when you damage that relationship by painting that phony picture, it's embarrassing for the person that has to represent that or explain that. And then all of a sudden, you get nothing. You're doing all the extra work, but you've lost all the add-ons, everything that was legit. You no longer get that right. So then you get frustrated and you leave that shop and you go off to the next store. But you left all of it on the table because you weren't honest right at the beginning and you didn't write a proper sheet, document everything. Now, I know, Bill, you've received this, I've received this. You guys will call and be, man, I've got this adjuster and it's just a massive problem. How do I word this? And wording, that's where it comes down to. And Bill and I discussed this. When you're in there and you're writing at that proper language and you're putting all the oversized dents on every single panel and you're marking it all down, and then they want to come in and argue it all, what's another way of doing that, Bill? Just move them all to the bottom of the estimate. Take all the oversized dents off of the panel, put them on a separate line at the bottom of the estimate, oversized dents on entire automobile. The number and whatever your charge is for your oversized dents.
Well, you could, what you naturally do is you're going to write it how you're comfortable writing it. Okay? Well, we all have our style.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Every one of us here does. But really what you have to do is take time to understand that other person's style. The more you understand their style, and then all you got to do is ask them, hey, how do you like to see your estimates? You know, what works well with in this market on hail damage assessment? How do you like to see that? And what you'll find, surprisingly enough, is that at the end of the day, they really do, and I think Ray touched on this yesterday, they really do want to pay you for the work. But what you fail to take the time to understand and seek to understand is their world that they live in and their constraints. And you try to put a square peg in a round hole without any consideration. And then you think they're assholes. And then high emotion, low intelligence kicks in.
And that's how the fight started.
Yeah.
And it's true, that very statement. When you're reading that insurance estimate, if they have it itemized out, panel by panel, itemize yours out panel by panel. If they have a line on the bottom, you're like, well, why the heck do they have that? Because obviously that's the way they need it to be. Every adjuster that walks through your door has a supervisor that they have to be accountable to. While you might only need to be accountable to yourself or the shop that you're at, you need to deal with the person who has to justify what you said. How many here have ever played the telephone game? Where if we started at that end of the room, and by the time the statement gets to that end of the room, it's completely different. It's no different when you're dealing with an insurance adjuster who has to relay that information to his supervisor. So make sure you write in the manner in which they want it wrote and understood. I'll give you a great example of Geico. How many of you in here love Geico insurance and think they're the greatest thing in the world? Yay! Now, last year, my last season for Chase and Hale, I got 25% markup on every single box side from Geico Insurance. And normally I charge 25% for an extended panel, but Geico said they didn't pay it. So I didn't argue. They said they didn't pay it. I said, what do you pay? What do you allow? And he said, limited access. 25% for limited access. And they paid it all year long. Not because I demanded that they paid it. I asked them, what do you pay? How do you need to wrote? And I wrote all of my Geico estimates exactly the way they wrote it. I figured that out within the first 2 weeks of the storm. I spent another 6 months at that same storm. Why would I argue for 6 months when the man is standing in front of me wanting to work with him?
Real quickly, that's just like the difference between loophole and double panel. A
Very
lot
much.
of them, if you say loophole, that's a no-no. We don't do loopholes, but they will pay double panel.
They will pay double panel.
So
And-
I write all mine as double panel. I don't write them as loophole.
Exactly. But now, don't expect an adjuster to come through the door and tell you all of the tips, tricks, and secrets to get them paid. You will need to communicate. You can't come up here and kick each other in the nuts and communicate with you.
That's why I'm standing by the podium.
So you have to communicate. Hey, I need to put this in there. Well, we don't pay for that. Okay. Well, do you pay for double panel? Well, yes, we'll pay for that. Ask direct questions. How many in here have always told your spouse, don't be big, hit me in the head with a brick? It's the same way when you're dealing with an adjuster. Don't go, well, he didn't pay for that, he's just a dick. So now I'm going to hit him for all of this, and I'm going to ghost panel every panel on the car. What do you need me to put to justify for you? I broke a quarter panel for Geico into 2 sections. All because I was willing to take it apart, photograph how those 2 sections were different. The top of it needed to be glue pulled. So I got to charge the top just like a rail as a double panel. The bottom, I had full R&I. I took all of the photos. Every system out there allows photos. Take photos, email photos. Every phone takes them.
Yeah, you know, you guys are the expert at what? PDR, right? What is that adjuster an expert at? You're asking me to tell me. Look at it. Look at it.
Adjusting estimates.
You know, we could sit here and debate the cost and price of, as a matter of fact, we could put a car right here, right? And I can assure you, there would be a lot of different perspectives on what it takes to fix that car.
Be 100 different estimates.
Okay, and so at the end of the day, the price for something is super subjective and likely driven by the market, right? And that's everywhere in our life. I mean, do you ever complain if you go to Safeway or, I don't know, Kruger's or Kroger's and it's 13 cents more for milk? Hey, I'm not paying that. I'm not paying an extra 13 cents on milk, sorry. I can get it over there for that, right? So the price variation happens. It happens everywhere. So you gotta be elastic when it comes to that. The reality of it is when you understand that adjuster's expertise and leverage it, that means that you have to play with them in a positive manner and position them as the expert. And tell them that, hey, you know, I know your role is getting an accurate estimate so you can serve your customer, our mutual customer. How can I help with that? What can I do to support that? What do you need from me, right? you have to play into that emotional construct with them. Otherwise, the moment, again, some of the books I gave out yesterday is going to help with some tips and tricks on how to do that. But it's so important, and the person that's winning doesn't have to be the one pounding their chest. It's actually getting them to do the negotiation for you.
Do y'all know the difference between making money and earning money? So you all make your money fixing cars. What we're discussing right here is how you earn your money. How you write your estimates and deal with them is how you're earning your money. Making it, we're all experts at fixing dents. But writing an estimate and being able to deal with 30 different insurance companies and their adjusters and their programs, their direct repair programs, their non-repair programs, dealing with those directly, that's how you earn your money. Putting together a format for your estimate writing that allows you some flexibility to change, but always put together your first flow. When you're writing every hail estimate that you do, always do the same set of patterns. And then when you get all done with it, and it doesn't matter what system you use, review it in an overall format. If you need to print it out to do that, then print it out. If you can just do a print preview, then bring it up as a whole, read your own estimate line by line as though you were an adjuster. If you had to try to argue against your estimate, how would you? If you looked at that car, you just looked at it, you wrote the whole sheet up, you looked at that whole sheet. What did you miss? That's legitimate. Did you word it the way that you know that adjuster is going? If you're in St. Louis and you're dealing with Geico and they want it wrote like this, and then you go down to Shreveport and you're working with Geico, do you think that company has two different sets of wording? It's exactly the same. Start out there, deal with the local adjusters as they come through your door. But start everyone, never start it with a lie or a falsehood on your end. Like Bill said, let them do the negotiation. If you are right and tight on everything that you did and true, then there's nothing for them to argue. Let them speak. Let them negotiate.
And a charge, so whether or not you have to do something or not doesn't go across the board all vehicles, all makes and models. Some models you have to pull a headlamp, some you may not, some you may have to pull a fender liner, some you might not, some you may have to pull a tail lamp, some you might not, right? Yes? But it seems to be, well, let's put it on everything. So if I'm an insurance company, right, and think about the repair center too, because they have an agreement and a contract, and there's a thing called work billed not performed, right? So
Have any of you ever heard of that before?
all right, so if you're writing something because it's your natural default to do it because you want to get its reasonable charge, which it is a reasonable charge if you're doing it. But if you're not going to do it and you know you're not going to do it, why do you put it on your estimate? Why do you do that?
I'll add two words of the most common: corrosion protection. How many of you charge for corrosion protection? Now, how many apply corrosion protection? If you're putting it on your sheet, you better be doing it.
So I want to take a list of you guys that raised your hand, and I'm going to come visit the storm. I'm going to come visit. Raise your hands up. Let's take a note, and I'm going to come visit and verify. All right? And if you can legitimately see, not as many hands just went up. So if you're going to put it on an estimate, you better do it.
Now, I have done two different charges on that. I've restored E-coat, and I've done corrosion protection. And the difference is, when I used Dwayne's Power PDR box, and I had to remove that E-coat on the backside, I didn't just spray cavity wax on that. I actually used E-coat and replaced it. I masked off the interior. and replace that E-coat. And I charge separately
I'm
for that.
gonna argue with you a little bit, okay? So there is no, we can't replace E-coat. E-coat's a manufacturing process. Okay?
Here's we're discussing language. This is exactly
Okay.
what we're talking about.
So E-coat is done at the manufacturer. We don't do that in the repair world, right? And the closest thing that we can ever put on close to that level of corrosion protection, as far as Adam said, and for years, is epoxy.
Right.
Okay, so if you're putting on corrosion protection, really you should be putting on epoxy, two-part epoxy. There's no such thing as a single part epoxy that comes in an aerosol can. Okay, so if you're legitimately restoring that hot spot that you created, you need to use epoxy. Period, end of story. Okay, now something is better than nothing. Okay, but
Absolutely.
don't think you're doing the right thing by spraying something that says E-coat on it, because that's not right.
Lesson learned. Language. That's a prime example of what we're just talking about, though. Language. You know.
Well, I don't want you guys to look stupid.
Yeah.
When somebody really knows what they're talking, I'm not saying you don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, but my example was a very
In that particular case, I have a deep experience,
Right.
And so I'm sharing that deep
And I
experience.
gave you guys basically like the dumbest down version of it that I could give. And he went into a far more specific detail. But notice there's a big difference between spraying cavity wax and what Bill just said. So when you're restoring that epoxy E-coat, you're not just spraying a cavity wax.
The cavity wax is a good solution. It's a viable solution, but keep in mind, your first thing is epoxy, and maybe the second would be a cavity wax. The good news is you're probably in the collision side of the business. A lot of what's happening. This is where we as experts can help by glue pulling rails, glue pulling those tight spots where you can't get corrosion protection versus pinning it, right, and creating all those hot spots. So.
We are seeing that in the collision industry.
Oh yeah.
You guys with Axiom are seeing that a lot more as well.
We do it all the time.
The ultra high strength steels, you can't get them that hot without affecting the actual strength of the metal. So.
To sort of dovetail a bit about what John's talking about around documentation, and think about it this way: don't get hung up on necessarily the tools you're using to document, but document. So if you say, well, geez, it's hard for me to document it because I don't have access to X, Y, or Z, well, then get access to X, Y, or Z, right? You just have to do that. If you're the professional and you're creating a repair method to fix that car, then your documentation needs to reflect that 100%. We used the term yesterday, nothing more, nothing less, right? Same principle applies. Think about not writing an estimate, but writing a repair plan that gets translated into an invoice, okay? The repair plan needs to reflect the actual work performed.
That's actually a very good statement. How many of you ever heard repair plan before? Yeah, for those of you that are following the collision industry, that's ultimately people are stopping calling it estimating and calling it a repair plan, because that's what you're doing when you're documenting and going through all these steps. And you say, I removed the trim panel, I removed the glass to fix this door. If you put together that repair plan and then drill a hole, then you've created a lie. Number one, in a liability. How many?
The liability is probably worse, but
It is far bigger. How many of you guys know that the doors have airbag sensors in them? Now, how many of you knew that they use an air pressure sensor for some of those airbag sensors? So when you drill a hole, you've changed the pressure rating when that door gets crushed.
Or you pull the trim panel off and don't put the vapor barrier back on.
Don't put the vapor barrier, don't put all the retainer clips
That's right.
back in. All of those things can affect one of those air pressure airbag sensors. So when you put together a repair plan, your estimate is your repair plan. Follow through with it.
We brought a point about taking glass out. I've seen a lot of estimates say R&I glass. Do you guys pull the glass? Every time? Okay. It's still one of those things where I've seen glass say, but they have put the
wedge in.
Put the wedge
Toyota
in.
doesn't recommend it at all on PDR. Wedge in the glass.
And the vapor barrier is one-time use as well.
Yep.
Like how many times do you pull the vapor barrier off and slap it back on?
Do you know why the manufacturers do the one-time use? Because they don't trust us.
That's fair enough, yeah. I believe it.
They don't. They don't trust us putting it back the way it was. They don't trust us using the right adhesive to do that. And why Farzam earlier talked about, manufacturers like BMW that's endorsing PDR, because quite candidly, and I spoke to, gosh, I forget his name. Who's the guy from BMW at IBIS, Farzam? Yes. Yeah, he's actually a technician, but now he works apart other methods, and he's really bringing this PDR component here in the U.S. to BMW, and because he says, look, two things: it takes too long to fix our cars when we're cutting them apart, and secondly, we would much rather preserve our OEM panels because we're fearful that it gets into a repair shop, they're not going to do it right. So there's a big opportunity for you professionals to leverage that in a lot of ways.
And make sure if you want to use that and quote that, make sure you look up BMW's repair procedures for PDR. Good. If you have to purchase the data from the manufacturer, like Honda, if you want their OEM position statements, you have to subscribe to Honda. It's worth the money for the knowledge. You're in here because you expand your knowledge. So if you're going to fix these cars, you're going to advertise them, you're going to follow their procedures for repair, make sure you go to that manufacturer and get that. I mean, Bill and I can sit up here and just like this in the eco discussion, you could go back and forth for days discussing everything, but it doesn't mean it was the same as what Honda's pages printed out.
Go ahead.
FYI, Honda charges $350 a year for that's Honda and Acura. That's what it costs. $350 a year, so about less than almost $1 per day, if you will. No, for the whole, their website.
All repair
Technical
procedures,
scope.
all Honda recommended repair procedures.
It's called Service Express. But what you said earlier about the manufacturer, BMW, Lexus, and others are following the same path. They have a pre-owned certified. The moment you weld the car, it no longer qualifies as pre-owned certified. Therefore, PDR becomes a pretty big deal because for the dealerships, if it's not welded on, then they can sell it as a pre-owned certified. So it's a huge, that's why a lot of people are coming back to PDR as a way of, it's a better way to fix the cars, it's faster, and cost of ownership from the insurance side is less too.
Bill, to sort of, before we get into some Q&A here, and hopefully we'll have some Q&A, I think the more that you guys have some questions or even challenge us up here, the more beneficial it's going to get to you guys out there. But we talk in our company about a perfect file, and it is, it's something that if you, when John's talking about language, right? So if you put it in your head, you say, look, my obligation is to create a perfect file, right, on everything I do, and you understand and you create a script for yourself around what a perfect file is, then you're more likely to accomplish that every time. And I think that's a really important takeaway. So a perfect file really is, it's essentially, it's a written document that reflects what you're actually doing to the car. It reflects any sort of notes that better explain the process. It reflects the verification of the damage with images and or OEM documentation that's supported, right? It also complies with, rates of the market, and then it also creates a way that a document can be then produced to put into the car and say, hey, and anybody that walks up to this vehicle, they've got a plan of what's happening to it, and they understand what's happening to it, right? There's no guesswork. So what you don't want is things happening to a car that don't need to happen to a car, right? And and it's okay to change your mind. I've fixed cars since I was 14 years old. And I can tell you many times when I was doing car repair every day, I thought I needed to do something and I didn't. Or I didn't think I needed to do something and I needed to, right? But you have to communicate that and document that. You just can't say, oh, I had to do that. So if there's a repair method change, that's got to be communicated easily. Now think about, we can get in a long conversation about roof replacements, right? Oh man,
That could go on for days.
That could go on for days, right? I mean, there's so many reasons why we should do everything possible to preserve that roof. There's so many things, right? But yet we don't take the time to explore those options. And a part of the things that we're trying to do in our company is educate insurers to get them out of their boxes too, right? Around roof replacements and methodologies to preserve that roof panel or any panel for that matter. So I think the big thing is try to use some sort of an internal frame of how you're presenting your documentation. In our company, we like to use a perfect file. It stands on its own. Anybody in our company can walk in, look at that record, and know exactly what's going on. Period, end of story, no questions, no ambiguity, nothing, right?
For those of you guys who have like employees, lots of employees or something, ultimately building a file like that builds consistency. Not only using the same software throughout your company, but having the exact same workflow for all of your estimators builds consistency and keeps the company legitimate as well. Just like knowing your software. How many of you are waiting until the first hailstorm before you resubscribe to your software? Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's Bill's software or mine. You should know that software inside and out now, not on the way to the storm. You should know that. You should be practicing with that. You should be looking at, if I'm writing out how to do this, how do I put it all into my software? And how do I convey? How do I put my notes? How easy is it? What are the steps I have to go through to make sure that I document every single part of my repair plan and what I'm going to bill out every single time?
Well, that's not going to change, okay? I can tell you that the likelihood of I have a vision. A vision's a one-entry technology, right? Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Yeah, it would be great.
Of course, right? But I don't see a future necessarily, Brad. It's too far out for me to see that. But the reality of it is the likelihood of one-entry technology solution is. I think someday it'll get there, but if you look at the classical collision business, they have CCC and Mitchell Autotex.
Yeah.
All right, those are the main three that they're working with, and then they've got their business management solution, which some are integrated. CCC one has an integrated system, and you got Mitchell has one, and then there's a half a dozen other business management solutions that they get integrated into. Right now. That's one of our company passions is integration. We want to be able to be integrated into all those things, so we make it easy for people to communicate. And that's something I think that we have to work on together in our industry. Is corral our technology teams into being better integrators with each other and abroad. Outside of our little microcosm, right? So at the end of the day, you pick your tool of choice. But ultimately, it's going to be easy to plug and play, right? But to John's point, know, if you are gonna select a package, an estimating package, then think about that. Think about how are you able to use that to communicate outside of just there, right? And things are coming. And an example of things are coming is that. I had that up earlier. So this is real. What you're looking at is real. It's not an animated picture. And it's several years away from being market ready. But tools like this are gonna replace dent count. So what does that do for us? I think it does a lot for us. I mean, the amount of time we spend on things like that, we can spend more on higher margin activity and activity to your profession versus, you know, putting yourself in a position of arguing whether that's a dime size or quarter size or whatever, right? And it's, oh, that's a sharp dent, that's a, you know, whatever that is, that whole thing just goes away, right? And John and I were talking, he said, well, what'd you say on that? Today,
Yeah,
it's not that easy to have that done.
No, but, you know, think about the amount of time you spend writing an estimate. These systems here are capable of doing an entire car in 11 seconds or faster.
And you integrate that to a supply chain. So what you see the damage it's picking up, it's gonna pick up any surface defect. So that's how this is. A lot of times you'll see systems today, their scanners, they'll put in a 3D model of a vehicle, and then what happens is that scan picks up dents and it overlays a model on the car, right? This technology, that's the car. It's actually giving a 3D rendering of that vehicle, that car at that moment. Okay, so it's a perfect documentation of the damage. So what do you think is going to happen when? And by the way, the level of accuracy is incredible. Okay, so let's say that we write this and it goes into a repair shop and it goes into your stall to fix. What do you think is going to be done when you're done with that car? It's going to get scanned again. Do you think it's going to pick up any surface defects? What do you think that's going to do to your level of quality requirement? It's coming. It's absolutely going to come. So quality verification is going to be one through tools like this. It's going to be done through companies like Farzem that does in-process validation of repair methods. And then we're also going to have to be involved in crafting that, and the people that are in this room are perfectly positioned for that. Everybody that's not here, they're going to be wondering what's going on. So any Q&A? Well, we got so much time. We got 8 minutes.
Palms are a little sweaty getting asked this.
Come up here.
Whatever, I will. And maybe this is a question for Farzan.
Can you get a mic?
This is going to probably challenge us as a whole.
Hey,
Okay.
Farzan, I think there might be something if you want to get close to a mic.
This is actually going to be a challenging question that I've asked some peers privately, and I don't feel that I have a clear answer, hence clear conscious on some things. So I'm going to be brave here, bear with me. When we talk about OEM procedures and being black and white, Farzan, am I saying that correct? And you're either pregnant or not pregnant, correct? No gray area. Per OEM procedures, how do we pair up with manufacturers in a proper and transparent way to update what we are very bolsterous about in the PDR industry on fixing larger damage without openly being a liability? Because per OEM procedures, there is diameter and certain restrictions obviously with every OEM, and I know for me, working door dings, body line dents, large damage, smashes as we all quote them, and we're all very proud of that, as we should be. How do we pair up properly with manufacturers to have updated approvals? Because technically, right, if we're not doing things per OEM in a black and white situation, we open a can of worms for liability, don't we? Or do we not? How do we get better at that when we're talking about black and white, but technically when we're looking at black and white on paper, there's a gray area of what we're actually working on. I know that's challenging, you guys, I'm sorry, but I want to ask it.
Sure. It's a pretty loaded question with several different components to it. One of them is how do we get closer to OEM? And some OEMs don't even know you exist, unfortunately. And some OEMs who do know you exist, they see you as an opportunity to sell more parts and protect the brand better. And so I think it's not just one answer to each one of them. It is, I hate to come back again here, forms like this, which allows for more professionalism and somebody to take the message all the way to the OEMs, and your participation to demanding the courses to be created and validated by manufacturers for you. I mean, we're just talking for breakfast with Bill about, we could really talk to Toyota. Toyota has their own training center, and I know a lot of the instructors want me, why not create a, 2-3 hour course on PDRing Toyotas? I mean, that would be a great way, and then go into the other manufacturers. So there's a lot to be done here, and so you are viable, you are a solution, and it's really amplifying that a lot bigger, because there is so much going in what you guys are doing. I mean, this pre-owned certified is huge in the dealer world, and we've gone and looked at the car like, oh, there it is. This car had been painted before, and then we look further. Oh yeah, there's a panel being replaced. There's a welded-on panel. No longer qualifies. Right there, there's a huge disadvantage for that dealer to sell that car. That's where Carfax does it. So for you to be able to be invisible repair in a way, to do what you do and save that car, there would be articles written about benefits of PDR. I mean, really working on that. I mean, we have a Guild 21, that I do for collision industry. I'll be happy to open that up to you guys. I've already done the knowledge form for it, and we'd love to open it up for you. We do it second Thursday of every month, and from 11 to 12 Pacific time. You guys can take, first Thursday, whatever you want, of every month, and then you can bring professionals from both sides and keep educating your industry and also educating manufacturers and insurers. I think this is that's my recommendation. I think your question was very well said, but it's just not one solution. I think you need to have a shotgun approach to all of these things because there's so much opportunity.
That's a great question, good answer. I will say one thing about the big damage though. So the only thing I think you have to be concerned about in bigger damage repairs is one, knowing the steel that you're working on and the parameters of that steel. And as long as you can work it cold, most things are fine. So that's going to require you to have OE access so you can find out what that panel steel is. Of course, if it's a weld-on panel, it's going to have a bit more restrictions than if it's not a weld-on panel. But I don't see a big risk in big dent repair. I really don't.
As long as the intrusion beam is
Yeah.
uncompromised in any way. And that's something that's going to be on every OEM's repair procedure.
Mhm.
So the first thing that you could do is make sure and research that exact manufacturer and what their repair procedures are. You know, like we discussed earlier, Honda, like $300 for the year subscription. Honda's got one of their door handles that has the sensors in it for the key fobs. You know how many pages on the repair procedure for changing out that handle? 74.
Wow.
It's been going around auto body forums on Facebook heavily because there's 74 pages of repair procedures for a door handle. So for, you know, there's nobody, I would not trust anybody, you know, well, Frank on Facebook told me, if you're working on Chevy, go to Chevy and get their repair procedures.
Yeah, spot on. Did you have a question? No.
Yeah, actually, while we're looking at this picture, because, I mean, in the presentation, you made it seem like we're taking the dents and taking it back to perfect OEM, back to square. Okay, those of us that have gone through the Vail certification, even when our dents were mapped, I mean, there was some variation there within a percentage, you know, because when we're talking our larger damage, I mean, you know, we're making it visually right.
Hey, don't kill the messenger.
No. I mean, we're talking to two people on the same, you know, we got two sides of the fence. You know, I make
One side of the fence.
okay, but I make repairs, you know, and visually, I mean, I'm taking a smash and I'm making it visually look, you know, and then brother body shop guy comes up and goes, oh, but I feel some deviation here because the collision repair, you know, they do things by feel and we do things by visual, but, you know, if they scan our vehicles, which, I mean, I'm okay with, but is there gonna be some tolerance?
That I don't know.
That's where the NAPDAR,
At
I
the
mean,
end
that's where our NAPDAR dollars go into.
At the end of the day, we know the tech's coming, okay?
Yeah.
How it gets rolled out into the industry, we need to be close to it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
That's it.
Yeah, I've been at the, you know,
Right now, anything that we can say up here is the same speculation that y'all have.
yeah, I'm just wondering what you guys are doing, because I have those companies that are doing that come up to my booth at the various trade shows saying, hey, we've got this, you know, we're rolling this out in Europe, and, you know, and I'm going, whatever, you know. But the after scan, that, I mean, this is the first time I've heard of an after scan.
Yeah, and the reason for that after scan coming out is liability. Everything that we've been discussing up here, it all comes out to liability. Whomever the repairer is.
And fraud. It's fraud protection.
Oh, yes, and fraud, yes.
It's fraud protection too. So if
Goes right back to mine.
this thing gets scanned, right, and 3 weeks later another hailstorm hits,
Yeah.
and it scans again, you got your dents already established. The algorithm can see the difference between the new damage and the old damage. Then now you can document what that additional damage is. There's so many, you know, utilizations of the tool.
And to be able to expand on that just a little bit, you know, one storm to the next. When we're looking at it with our eye, we can't tell. We've all had that argument. You don't know. This is to get the level that this is going. I mean, it can tell a tenth of a millimeter. You know, so it's going to have that record. And that's why you can't lie about it. You can't hide it. So it's what's going to happen when it gets implemented. That's anybody's guess. But do understand that it doesn't matter if everybody in this room doesn't like it. It's still coming.
When is it coming out?
That is the super question.
Well, there's body shops in Omaha that already have lines. Is that just for collision or is this something different?
No,
3D imaging.
the one thing is different. Yeah, that's different.
Okay.
This is some really complex stuff. I actually met with the engineer of the company that's doing it, and they've been working on it for years. So to get a commercially viable product and to be able to be scalable is what they're working on. So I would venture to say, I'd say, huh?
You seen it in real time?
Yeah, yeah. I would venture to say it's 2 years.
Yeah.
It's right around the corner.
Yeah.
What's the cost like?
Well, I don't know. I don't know. It's, yeah, those are the things that,
Yeah, that's pure speculation.
yeah. I have no idea how this will apply to the body shop world, if at all, you know?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is it is it a scan device tool or is it an app kind of like Mobile Tech RX or Mobile PDR Mobile?
What you see is what it is.
That's
That's it.
Scans the car.
And is that something both companies are working together on, or it is just separate side of the
Well, this is an outside company.
Got it. Okay, so this has no affiliation with any companies on stage?
No.
Got it, okay.
Does the tech do the scanning or the insurance company?
It doesn't matter. You can take somebody off the street and do it.
I think the race that you've seen, because there's, this is one example of it. There's, Lord only knows how many more. But the race is to see who can get it out in the public's hand first.
By public, you mean the insurance company.
Well, no, just to a marketable product.
Yeah, it's no different than Bill and I trying to sell our software and say, no, we're only going to sell it to these 5 people. That it doesn't work. It's got to be out there for.
On a large scale, the insurance companies who wants this, sure. It's going to start on the insurance level before it filters in our phone.
It's
Yeah,
a distinct
To
possibility.
be able to get to your phone and use your actual phone device is probably 5 to 7 years. Because you have to have 2 to 3 cameras built into the device. But that's coming too. There's companies working on that. So his question is about integrating OE procedures into either of our applications, right?
Right. So if you do a Toyota camera usage maybe a red flag comes up on the app and says OE procedure is going to the board. And I know you can't give, the whole ride out, but at least just give me a heads up.
That level of transparency with OEs in the pipeline to the data doesn't exist today. There's entire companies that spend time aggregating stuff, and it's too cost prohibitive right now for us to do that, but I would love some world where that exists for us.
But even the OEM has stated that the reason why each of theirs has a charge and a separate subscription and everything is because it's costing them millions to produce this data and make it available. So for them to just shoot it out to us to be able to give to you guys for free,
And I mean, not everything, but just necessarily like a red flag saying check coding procedures, something short version, and maybe even use it as an add-on and maybe have PDF downloads or something.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a move. I think our 2 companies and probably the other
I think every company
is looking at that stuff. How it's going to be. Ideally, it's our responsibility as a technology solution to provide you the most relevant information at the time, so you can use the tool to connect with your environment. So all those things are being thought of.
Yeah.
There's resources available that I wanted to share with you. Most shops you go to, like my company Verifax, we certify shops for Jaguar, Land Rover, Ford, Honda, Cadillac, and GM. GM other than Cadillac. What's important and interesting here is if you go to those body shops, they're already subscribed to many of those subscription already, and the other one's AllData. You guys have heard of AllData, correct? So you can actually go there. If you don't have access to it, tell them, hey, can you print this for me? And then you have that before you're working on the car. So that way, for some of you, it would be cost prohibitive to go out and subscribe to that, but that way you can get it, you can go there in front of a car, you're looking at it, and if you tell the shop owner, hey, I need to have it so I know what am I in front of what, so I can know what I'm dealing with, if it's what kind of, if it's a rail, what kind of rail it is it ultra high strength steels, is that 590, 780, what it is, because anything more than 590, you cannot create. I'm sorry?
Yeah, 590.
Yeah, you
Did you
cannot
guys know what
create.
he's talking about, 590 and 780, you know what that means?
MPA.
Yeah, for example, 590 megapixel is the strength of steel, and anything less than that, you can apply heat to it. Anything more than that, you cannot apply heat to it. And then also heat application is minimized to how much can you do it. Like GM says, you can do 60 or 90 second heat up to 1200 degrees. So you need to stick with those lines if you're applying any heats. But you guys don't apply heats, am I correct?
Hot box, technically.
Sometimes our big dent.
But do you apply that much heat? 1200?
No.
Okay, yeah.
But
So-
still, it's something you should be aware of, is applying heat on the modern steels in these automobiles.
that you change it in molecular structure. So cold application, as Bill was talking about, is really the really big thing. Most of them right now, they don't have a problem with you not applying any heat and just doing a cold repair.
Yeah. Well, I think we've overstayed, but we're here for you guys. So is there any other questions? Was there some value out of this?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good. So far today, day and a half, you guys wore out?
Yeah.
You wore out? We're just getting warmed up.
Y'all drinking from a fire hose?
I'll turn it over to our fearless leader, Mr. Hampton. Thank you.